I want to take you for a journey back in time. I want to paint pictures on your mind. Back to the year of 1878, when the Kelly family was trying to settle at a place called Eureka, when all was to change dramatically. This prodigal son of Australia was to make history and stand forever in Australian folklore. The last outlaw, Ned Kelly, his brother Dan, his good friend Joe Byrne, and Steve Hart were to be made outlaws. He's a first-generation Australian. He was one of our prodigal sons, hanged on the 11th of November. Smugly they felt justice done. But if you turn to the pages of the Bible, there's a prodigal son you will see, who came home to love and forgiveness, but not found for Ned Kelly. And as they wrote through the pages of history, these Australian prodigal sons came to grief at a town called Glenrowan that ended with blood, bone, and guns. And as they wrote through the pages of history, these Australian prodigal sons came to grief at a town called Glenrowan that ended with blood, bone, and guns. That ended with blood, bone, and guns. It was late Monday afternoon, April the 15th, 1878, when Constable Alexander Fitzpatrick was sent to relieve a police officer at the Eureka police station. Now, the police were told by their superior officers never go to the Kelly household alone, always go in twos and threes. Constable Fitzpatrick was a young man of 21, Irish descent. He loved a good drink and was very seldom sober. There was a tavern at Winton. Today, there's a motor racing track. But there was a tavern then, and he frequented it. There was a warrant in the Police Gazette about to be issued for the arrest of Dan Kelly for horse theft, something Dan hadn't done. But Constable Fitzpatrick, he was a womanizer. He had a girl in Frankston pregnant, with a father with a shotgun after him to make it right. He was sweet on Kate Kelly also, Ned and Dan Kelly's younger sister. It was all the excuse he needed to make it look right in the eyes of his superior officers. So he rode up and knocked at the door. Ellen Kelly, the mother of the Kellys, opened the door. She said, "Oh, what do you want?" He said, "I've come to see Dan. Is Ned home?" "No, Ned's not," with great relief to Fitzpatrick. She asked, "Do you have a warrant?" "No, I don't." "Dan, you've no business here." It was then that Dan chimed in and said, "It's all right, Ma. I'll go with you down to the station and sort the thing out. I've done nothing wrong. But if you don't mind, I'll have me supper first." So he sat to the table to have his supper. Constable Fitzpatrick joined him, sat down at the table with him. Kate was going about the cottage doing her chores when Constable Fitzpatrick pulled Kate upon his knee and put his hand where he shouldn't. Well, Ellen Kelly picked up a stove shovel and crowned him across the top of his helmet, possibly more than once. Dan dropped his knife and fork and jumped to his feet, where a brawl broke out. Fitzpatrick's gun was pulled and a shot was fired. Fitzpatrick was injured, but not by the gunshot, according to Dan. He hit his hand on the door catch. Fitzpatrick claimed in his report that Ned Kelly came to the door and shot him. Ned Kelly claims he was 400 miles away. They bandaged the Kellys, that is, bandaged Fitzpatrick's hand for him. He said, "You'll hear no more about it," and rode off, supposedly to the Greta police station. But he didn't. He went back to Benalla, where he put in a report and a charge of attempted murder on Ellen Kelly. She stood before Judge Sir Redmond Barry with a 7-month-old baby at her breast and was sentenced to 3 years hard labor. Now, the people in the district were incensed that a woman with a 7-month-old baby should be sentenced to 3 years hard labor. Now, the main gates of the Beechworth jail were made of timber, but the authorities feared that the protesters would set fire to the gates, so they replaced them with thousands of pounds worth of iron gates to prevent such an occurrence. Oh, if only they'd left them made of timber.
Gates on fire, said Mrs. Kelly Bray. How can there be justice for the likes of you and me? In the year of 1881, it came as no surprise when they held a royal commission, found the traps were bloody lies. Oh la la, the prison gates on fire, said Mrs. Kelly Bray. How can there be justice for the likes of you and me? Oh, the traps, they hounded the Kellys with every chance they got. They arrested Mrs. Kelly, she got 3 years in the slot. Oh la la, the prison gates on fire, said Mrs. Kelly Bray. How can there be justice for the likes of you and me? Oh, the people formed a protest, outside the walls they stood, but the law had showed no mercy, but these gates are made of wood. So la la, the prison gates on fire, said Mrs. Kelly Bray. How can there be justice for the likes of you and me? Well, there's one law for the wealthy, there's another for the poor. Oh, me, I got no money, I don't bother with the law at all. Oh, la la, the prison gates on fire, said Mrs. Kelly Bray. How can there be justice for the likes of you and me? So here's to the Royal Commission and all the things it said. It found the traps were liars, but it came too late for Ned.
When Ned learnt that his mother was in prison and a warrant issued for Dan's arrest, he suggested Dan get the horses, get the provisions. We're leaving tonight to the Wombat Ranges, where Ned had been taken in the past by an old rogue called Harry Powers. They camped at Bullock Creek, made horse yards, sluiced for alluvial gold, made pot whiskey, where 2 of their companions joined them, Joe Byrne and Steve Hart. Sergeant Kennedy from Mansfield Police was sent out to hunt the Kellys down. A good, honest, fair policeman, a good man by all accounts. With Scanlon, McIntyre, and an old enemy of Ned's, Lonigan. Lonigan had grabbed Ned by the privates in a scuffle in the streets of Benalla, and Ned swore then, "My God, Lonigan, I've not shot a man yet, but if ever I do, you'll be the first. And on the 26th of October, 1878, at Stringy Creek, Ned Kelly shot Thomas Lonigan first. And when Kennedy returned with Scanlon, McIntyre was sent forth to warn them. Ned Kelly called bail up. Scanlon was shot dead by Joe Byrne. Michael Kennedy dismounted. McIntyre grabbed Kennedy's horse and escaped. A gunfight broke out between Ned Kelly and Kennedy. Sergeant Kennedy was shot dead by Ned Kelly, and Ned Kelly took Sergeant Kennedy's prize gold watch. He's pushing his pony to stay clear of the town, riding tall in the saddle. But there's blood on the ground. Oh, Ned, now you're hunted by some of the best, and you ride day and night, but they won't let you rest. Since the story of Stringy Bark has reached Mansfield town, and you'll need all your friends, 'cause there's blood on the ground. Yes, you'll need all your friends, 'cause there's blood on the ground. Yes, he's pushing his pony to stay clear of the town, riding tall in the saddle, but there's blood on the ground. He'll throw out a challenge to a law that is bent, with a mother in prison, but they ain't caught him yet. He's defying the odds of a loaded dice, and he won't back down, and he won't think twice. Oh, he won't back down, and he won't think twice. All the wrongs that they've done him to try bring him down, now they're paying the price with their blood on the ground. Oh yes, they're paying the price with their blood on the ground. After the tragedy of Stringy Creek, a declaration of war existed. For on the 30th of October, 1878, the Victorian government passed an outlaw bill called the Felons Apprehension Act of 1878. Ned Kelly, his brother Dan, and two of their accomplices, so far unknown, would be proclaimed outlaws. The hunt was on now for the Kellys. They decided to rob the bank in Eureka, the National Bank. They first held up Faithful Creek Station, a working property where Joe Byrne would be left to keep guard on hostages. In the afternoon, a man by the name of James Gloucester from Seymour turned up with a wagon full of goods. Ned and the boys took suits and dressed very nicely, thank you, to ride into Eureka to rob the National Bank. When Ned surprised them by walking through the door and ordered them to bail up. Steve Hart was now found out to be a member of the gang, for he bumped into a young lady by the name of Maggie Shaw, an old school friend.
To pull a little prank. Am I riding down the back streets? We're gonna rob the bank. Hey Ned, what's the time? Oh, can you please tell me? Well, all he's got is stringy back time from Sergeant Kennedy. Well, the timepiece of the sergeant's on the wrong side of the law. While Neddy checks the time as he walks right through the door. Bail up was the order. Bail up is what he said. And make it good and snappy, or you find yourself late for lunch. Well, hey Ned, what's the time? Or can you please tell me? Well, all he's got is stringy back time from Sergeant Kennedy. Oh, Steve was at the back door, he's wearing a disguise. When a cleaner girl, she knows him, takes him by surprise. Hey Steve, what are you doing? As she stood by the water tank. Get back inside, you silly girl, we're gonna rob the bank. Well, hey Ned, what's the time? Oh, can you please tell me? Well, all he's got is stringy back time from Sergeant Kennedy. Oh, they gathered all the people there, both women, men and boys. And they all left Eureka in a bloody great convoy. They headed out to Maple Creek where the people were told to stay. Counted all their money, then they rode away. Hey Ned, what's the time? Oh, can you please tell me? Well, all he's got is stringy back time from Sergeant Kennedy. Well, hey Ned, what's the time? Oh, can you please tell me? Well, all he's got is stringy back time from Sergeant Kennedy.
It's 1879, February, midsummer. The gang had asked Aaron Sherritt if he'd join them. He declined. They told him they were going to Jerilderie, but Aaron told the police that they were going to Goulburn. When they arrived in Jerilderie, they locked up the two local police officers, Richards and Devine. Devine had said to the Victoria police, if the Kellys were in New South Wales, we'd have had them behind bars by now. And when Ned heard about this, his comment was, let's pay them a visit. They put on police uniforms and paraded around the streets of Jerilderie as police officers. They cased the bank. Ned had with him a copy of his famous Jerilderie letter, which he wanted published in the local newspaper. After robbing the Bank of New South Wales, putting the money in a 70-pound sugar bag, headed back to Victoria, unchallenged. Devine couldn't stand the shame and humiliation of being locked up in his own cell by the Kellys. He left the New South Wales police force and went to Perth, where he worked as a racecourse detective. He died in 1929.
Jerilderie, Jerilderie, your fame it did soar. When the Kellys paid a visit, they are part of folklore. They crossed the mighty Murray in 1879. They were riding nice and easy, they had plenty of time. Jerilderie, Jerilderie, your fame it did so. Oh, when the Kellys paid a visit, now you're part of folklore. They rode early in the morning to miss the midday heat. It was February, midsummer, now this was quite a feat. Jerilderie, Jerilderie, your fame it did so. Oh, when the Kellys paid a visit, now you're part of folklore. They locked up the local constabulary, Richards and Devine. They were casing the bank, and they were biding their time. Jerilderie, Jerilderie, your fame it did so. Oh, when the Kellys paid a visit, now you're part of folklore. For many days they pondered with paper and with pen. I gotta get this letter out so folks will understand. It's the plight of me mother I want all the world to see. That's why I penned this letter here in Jerilderie. Jerilderie, Jerilderie, your fame it did so. Oh, when the Kellys paid a visit, now you're part of folklore. Jerilderie, Jerilderie, the truth or just wives' tales. You try telling this to the boys in the Bank of New South Wales.
After the Kellys had returned from Jerilderie, they lay low for about 16 months. They were unseen and unheard of. In that time, of course, they were making their suits of armor. Word was getting around that there was some doubt as to Aaron Sherritt's loyalty to the gang. Detective Ward had deliberately caused this impression by having Aaron constantly in the presence of police. It was compounded when Joe Burns' mother went looking for 2 stray cows. Walking along the creek bank, she found a cake of soap. And being an astute Irish bushwoman, she realized that something was up. She turned and looked up the mountain to the cave that was being used as a hideout by the police, and saw something glinting in the sun, which turned out to be a food tin. On closer inspection, she found Aaron Sherritt with the police. She said to Aaron, "And what would Joe be thinking of you now, Aaron?" Aaron reportedly said to the police, "I'm a dead man."
Oh, Aaron Sherritt, what have you done? With your friends still on the run, you better hide, you better run, you better get yourself a gun. 'Cause the word's been put about, you're more than just a scout, you're an informer, what's more. Oh, Aaron Sherritt, what have you done? With your friends still on the run, you better hide, you better run, you better get yourself a gun. You've been found to be untrue, Joe is coming after you like he swore. Oh, Aaron Sherritt, what have you done? With your friends still on the run, you better hide, you better run, you better get yourself a gun. And Joe said to Ned, "The bastard's dead. He won't run with the foxes or hunt with the hounds anymore. He won't run with the foxes or hunt with the hounds anymore." around anymore. Anymore. Anymore.
It was the 26th of June, Saturday, when Joe Byrne shot to death Aaron Sherritt, his lifelong friend. There were 4 police in the hut. They were afraid to come out. The Kelly boys tried to set fire to the hut, but a heavy dew prevented it from burning. The word finally got to the police in Beechworth that the Kelly boys had shot Aaron Sherritt dead. Joe Byrne and Dan Kelly then rode through the night to Glenrowan to join Ned and Steve Hart. The idea was, when Aaron was shot, that the police would come running up on a Sunday. Passenger trains did not run on a Sunday. They chose Sunday because the police special would run. They would derail the train at Glenrowan on a steep, sharp bank as the train went rattling through to go to Beechworth. Ned had hostages in Glenrowan, and one was Thomas Curnow, a schoolteacher who befriended Ned and talked him into allowing him to go home. He then betrayed Ned by taking his sister's red llama scarf with a candle and setting up a red glow to warn the police of what lay ahead for him in Glenrowan. And when the train arrived in Glenrowan, being fully warned that the Kellys were now in Annie Jones's inn, the shooting started. Nobody knows who started to shoot first, but the bullets were flying. The police then went and shot all the horses, except for one grey mare. Her name was Music. She belonged to Joe Byrne, but she also was faithful for Ned. She was a well-trained horse. She would come at a whistle, canter straight up to them. It was Joe Byrne who was first shot to death at Glenrowan, right before Ned's eyes. And when Ned came through the gun smoke and the mist in his armor, shooting at the police, Music ran over to Ned not once, but twice. She then got wounded, and she headed off down the railroad track, heading towards Wangaratta. This is her story on what happened on the 28th of June of 1880 at the siege at Glenrowan. Music was a grey mare, as faithful as could be, the pride and joy of Joe Burns, who rode with Ned Kelly. She was there at Glenrowan on the 28th of June, found down by the railroad track when she received a wound. Is she folklore, is she outlaw, or just somebody's friend? Their fight was with the law got 'em in the end. In her saddle and her bridle, she waited for her friend. But how was she to know Joe Burns had met his end? So is she folklore, is she outlaw, or just somebody's friend? Their fight was with the law got 'em in the end. Oh, what a lonely sight she must have made, confused and all alone, waiting there for Joe to take him safely home. But he never came to get her, and she'd see him no more. The traps had Joe's body strung up on a police cell door. Is she folklore, is she outlaw, or just somebody's friend? Their fight was with the law got him in the end. And I'm sure if she'd have seen him there, she'd have trotted to his side. But when the bullets blew at Glenrowan, this little mare didn't try to hide. And when the fighting was at its highest and bullets filled the air, she trotted up to Ned on the courage of his mare. Is she folklore, is she outlaw, or just somebody's friend? Their fight was with the law got them in the end. Up in a circus for all the world to see, this brave little mare who rode with Ned Kelly. Oh yes, she's folklore, she's no outlaw, she was Joe Burns' best friend. Their fight was with the law, and she was faithful to the end. Yes, she's folklore, she's no outlaw, she was Joe Burns' best friend. Their fight was with the law, and she was faithful to the end. Well, Ned Kelly was renowned for making certain statements, like in the Jerilderie letter where he said, "I'm a widow's son made outlaw." And when he was finally captured at Glenrowan and taken to Melbourne for his wounds to be healed, and then transported by train to go to Beechworth for the court hearing, when they were about Violet Town, he said to the police officers riding in the train with him as he looked up at the Strathbogie Ranges, "Oh, how I miss the Strathbogies. I guess I'll never get to ride the hills and valleys again." And then the court hearing eventually was held in Melbourne, when Judge Sir Redmond Barry asked him if he had anything to say for himself before he brought sentence. And Ned looked him in the eye and he went on about the fact that we'll all stand before a higher court than this, and where I go, I'll see you there. And 12 days after Ned was hanged, Judge Sir Redmond Barry died. And when Ned was in his holding cell and it was time for the execution, they came and said, "Ned, it is time." And Ned rose to his feet and said, "I suppose it's come to this," and his famous last words, "Such is life." Now he's alone in his prison cell, and he's thinking aloud. To hell with Sir Redmond Barry, his court, his wig, his gown, and he sentenced me to hang, and then he brought the gavel down. But I'll always be remembered for all the wrongs they done when they made me an outlaw and me a widow's son. So to hell with Sir Redmond Barry, whose judgment was not fair. But where I go, you bastard, I know I'll see you there. As I sit here in my prison cell, it's the Strathbogies I do miss. To sleep no more under the stars, I suppose it's come to this. And when I mount the gallows, to be an end to all my strife, I look my accusers in the eye, whisper, "Such is life." Sir Redmond should have heeded those prophetic words of Ned. 12 short days later, and the pompous bastard's dead. As Sir Redmond made his journey through the gates of eternity, I should be there to meet him, none other than Ned Kelly. With Burns and Hart and Dan all standing by his side, And now it's Sir Edmund's turn to run, with nowhere left to hide.
Run, you bastard, run. Run, you bastard, run. Run, you bastard, run. Run, you bastard, run. Run, you bastard. Run, you bastard, run. Run, you bastard, run. Run. Got the court no longer to hide behind. Now you run. Run, you bastard, run. Run, you bastard, run. Run, you bastard. I want it back, my mother. And the baby. I'll run. So-called British justice, huh? This is what I call justice. Run, you bastard. Run. Your gavel won't save you now. And I'll tear up the road, thank you. Look, under the wing. Sir Redmond Barry. All equal here.
Well, it's all over. Ned hanged on the 11th of November, Thursday morning, 10 o'clock. But he left behind memories that'll never be forgotten. He left behind family members too, one of them being Kate Kelly, Ned's young sister, who eventually moved to Forbes in New South Wales and married a man by the name of Foster. She bore him some children. But the pain and the agony of it all must have bore heavy on Kate. She hit the bottle, and she drowned in the river at Forbes. Some say it was suicide. If it was, is there any wonder? Oh, the pain and the shame wore her down. Oh, the pain and the shame wore her down. Now she cries on her bed, and she cries over Ned and Dan Kelly. There was a time when she could ride over hills and countryside, and she knew where they did hide. Did Kate Kelly, pretty Kate Kelly. She cries on the bed, and she cries over Ned and Dan Kelly. She gave up all her rights. She stood by them in all their fights. Did Kate Kelly, pretty Kate Kelly. Now she cries on her bed, and she cries over Ned and Dan Kelly. They were young and on the run. She fought hard for her mother's sons, Ned Kelly and Dan Kelly. Now she cries on the bed,
and she cries over Ned and Dan Kelly. She was bold, she'd take a chance, she led the traps, a merry dance, did Kate Kelly, pretty Kate Kelly. And now she cries on the bed, and she cries over Ned and Dan Kelly.
I dedicate this song to the memory of all those that played a part in the Kelly hunt on both sides of the law. Sergeant Kennedy, Scanlon, Lonigan, Ned Kelly and Dan, Joe Byrne, and young Steve Hart. And of course, Aaron Sherritt, the Tom Lloyd, and all the relatives and descendants. I dedicate this song to all of you. With all hurts all put to rest, sands of time have stood the test. With all opinions and stubborn pride, knowing there's pain on every side, the scars of life still remain. Underneath, people are the same. It's flesh and blood that feels the pain. Right or wrong, and who's to blame? So let it go, let it be. They left their mark in history, and surely all deserve to rest. The sands of time have stood the test. The rains of life wash blood away. Though pain and scars are here today, it's flesh and blood that feels the pain. Right or wrong, and who's to blame? So let it go, let it be. They left their mark in history. Surely all deserve to rest. Sands of time have stood the test. Let it go, let it be. They left their mark in history. Oh, surely all deserve to rest. Sands of time have stood the test. Surely all deserve to rest. Sands of time have stood the test. In the year 2003, I took a trip to Glenrowan, where I parked my truck outside what was once Annie Jones's Tavern. I was in the firing line. I surveyed the site and came away with the opinion that Glenrowan is a town of unfinished business. There's a street called Seed Street. That's where I parked my truck. Right on the spot where Ned Kelly fell when he was shot down by Sergeant Steele. The ghost of the Kellys still haunts Glenrowan. In Glenrowan some nights there's a mist that covers the town. 4 shots that ring out, but there's no one about. Or did they really bring those Kelly boys down? Oh Ned, what a story of fame, shame and glory. Your memory will always remain. In this country it's said, why there's none quite like Ned. But the end, it's always the same. You had friends that were true, they stuck right by you. They were always close at hand. They were here day and night of that Glenrowan fight, when the Kellys made their last stand. Oh Ned, what a story of fame, shame and glory. Your memory will always remain. In this country it's said, why there's none quite like Ned. But the end, it's always the same. So here on Seed Street, where the tourists all meet to gawk, to applaud and some to scorn, it was here on this site of that Glenrowan fight where the legend of Kelly was born. Oh Ned, what a story of fame, shame and glory. Your memory will always remain. In this country it's said, why there's none quite like Ned. But the end, it's always the same. Oh Ned, what a story of fame, shame and glory. Your memory will always remain. In this country it's said, why there's none quite like Ned. But the end, it's always the same. Yes, the end is always the same. Oh, the end is always the same. Well, I suppose it's come to this. Such is life.